Welcome to Electrolysis Unplugged, an after-hours chat beyond the probe with Joannie and Stephanie. We're here to dive deep into the world of electrolysis, education, and all things hair removal.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or just curious about the art of permanent hair removal, we've got the insights, tips, and fun stories to keep you plugged in.
So grab your tools, take a seat, and let's get into it. This is Electrolysis Unplugged, brought to you by the Electrology Education Coalition.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's event.
Dun, dun, dun. So Joannie and I were talking before you guys got on here about how we work to have a successful practice and the things that we have to do to maintain that. Because both of us have run larger practices. It's things that we come across that keep our books full, and things that we see people kind of forgetting about when their books start opening up. So, Joannie, if you want to start off, I can too. But what is, when you're looking at booking a schedule for an incoming employee, what are some of the things that you feel you want to see in the employees' behaviors within the practice? Like, what do you hope to gain from their downtimes in the office, and how do you hope they navigate those spaces?
So usually one of the best things, or one of the things that I do with most of the newer hires is I will actually have them, one, work the front desk. And part of that is to learn how the business is run so that you understand, what it actually takes to do that. But the other thing is to have them go through files, see clients that have not come in a while, that have not scheduled recently, people that maybe just came for consultation and there was no follow-ups. And then I tend to have them call these clients and then see about getting them in the books, not necessarily with them, but sometimes that's what happens. I feel like clients sometimes need a lot of follow-up. Like, I'll just use the example that you should never leave somewhere without making a follow-up appointment if it's that type of place. So how many times have you left, let's say the dentist office, have not made your appointment before you went, and then, you just forget about it, right? Time comes and goes and you're like, oh, I need to make that appointment. I need to call them. Okay, I'll call them this weekend. And then that comes and goes and you forget about it. And so a lot of it is just accountability with staying on top of people's schedules. And then to make sure that, they're being proactive about getting new clients. So whether that means that you're answering the phones and you are booking consultations, you're convincing on the phone, then your consultations have to be on point. But that's kind of, that's like a second type of, I guess, the second step to making sure that you're getting people in there and maintaining them.
That's actually, it's so interesting because I really believe in cold calls. And not in the sense of being salesy, but just approaching it in a sense that people fall out of the schedule, just
Yes.
like you said. It's, if you don't leave the office with 2 on the books at least, and like you and I talked in the past, we like to book out our year because we know what those trends are going to look like. And as seasoned electrologists, sometimes we can book that a little bit easier than a newbie. But sometimes people, they miss one appointment and they miss 2 appointments, and they remember why they wanted to get it done, but they just don't remember to put themselves first.
Sure.
And so a lot of times what we would do is, if you're using any type of digital software, so Vagaro does this. We used to use one called Pro Salon. We actually used to joke and call it Poo Salon, just so everybody knows, because it was a really bad software. But it was the back in the early 2000s. We would pull these lists, and it would basically be a client that hasn't been seen in them for at least 90 days. So we're talking they're out of a growth cycle for the majority of what's going on, right? Those are the people that we would start with.
Yes.
And then we would you would look at the 90-day people, and then you'd look at the 120-day people. and you just make those phone calls.
Yes.
It feels weird, but it
It is
also
very weird.
it is very weird, but it also gives you a chance to really get your consultation
Yes.
perfected. It gives you a chance to connect with patients. Sometimes people don't realize that their presence in our schedule actually means something to us as well. It's
Mhm.
not just like we show up and like wait for hairs to arrive. I mean, it is something that we went to 600 hours of school for and continued education, and like we're very passionate about these things. And so I think that when patients realize that like, hey, we actually cared about your treatment plan, no matter who calls, and I usually hope for the last technician that worked on them to make those calls. But if that last technician doesn't do it, then the next person who is hungry for that schedule can make those calls. And by and large, I would say every person that came through the office, if you gave them 30 people to call, they probably ended up with about 15 bookings.
Which
And
is pretty
sometimes
good.
we would do stuff like where it was like, hey, book 15 minutes, get 15 minutes, right? So at least got them back on track. We knew that they probably had a little bit more hair growth, right? And so we would get them a 30-minute clearance and then book them for their next 15-minute, right?
Mhm.
And that really helped. Another big one is I have a 2020 referral program, and I've done this for years. It has always worked really well. And my very loyal clients that like they show up, they're present, they're excited about their progress. I talk to them about like my referral program. Like if you have somebody that you think would also love the results that you received, when they book their consult and have their first session, you get $20 because they booked the consult. And when they come in for their second session, they get $20 off theirs. And so it's like gifting, it's like one client gifting you a new patient, and you gave them a nod back, right? And then you also gave their friend a deal. And it
Mhm.
starts to build this like very cohesive connection between all the people that come into your schedule. And there are people that are eager to be in your schedule
Yeah,
um, because they got that word of mouth first.
sure.
And then the last thing I do is a referral program, not referral into, or not referral, review program. So if I have somebody that I know is hurting financially, obviously because we have the school and the clinic and we do insurance, there's scales to what they can pay. But if I know they're hurting financially, I'll ask them to leave a Google review, and then they can get $5 off their service. And they have to give me a screenshot. I have to see proof of it. And then I'll engage with it so it helps me on the SEO. And then the next time they come in, I'll ask them for a Facebook review. Same deal. And each place that they're willing to review me in, they can have $5 off the next service.
Mhm.
And that's been also very fruitful. But it to keep somebody in your chair, no matter the size of your clinic, you've got to do that heavy lifting
Yes.
because they're not going to do it themselves. Um, the ones that fall out of the schedule really do need that guidance to get back in.
Yeah. No, for sure. I feel like you have to be on top of your treatment plans and your client list. And you really shouldn't let clients just disappear without at least maybe a text or just a quick phone call, a follow through or follow up in some way. I feel like most of the clients that have fallen off my schedule have done so for a reason. They're either pretty much done or they've moved or, whatever other reason there is, there's a reason for it. So just like you said, when you start, especially if you're kind of joining somebody's practice that has been open and fruitful for years, there's always piles and piles of clients that, over the years have come and gone. And so you just have to, just like you said, and just sit them at the phone, give them a stack of files and say, start calling,
And
see what's going on.
and make notes. So
Yes.
you have to be able to go in there and whatever software you called them on or whatever list you gave them or you gave yourself, right? You need to go back in there and write what they said.
Yes.
Even if it's like a brief sentence, like they're not interested, they can't afford it, they didn't like this, they didn't like it. That happens too, right? They were hoping for different results, whatever that is, and see if you can encourage them to try again or jump back into the schedule. And if they're like, not at this time, right, not at this time, and ask them at the end of that call, can I give you a call in about 6 months and see if you're ready to begin then? I really want to be able to get you to these results. And most of the time people will say yes, because it's not like, Google is calling,
Yeah.
right? It's us. So,
You know,
really,
what's interesting is I feel like clients sometimes just want to be heard with certain situations and they would rather just kind of disappear. But if
Mhm,
you just take the time to kind of listen to whatever issue or complaint they might have had, they're not a hard sell to bring back into the office.
mhm,
Because I've done that a few times where there was some situations and something maybe didn't go right their last session, or they're displeased about something. And so just recently, actually, I had an email come through and it was a client saying that she's been coming 6 months, and with the time investment and the pain and all that, it was getting discouraged and she wanted a refund on all of her leftover money from her package. So I said, you know what? Can I give you a call? Can we talk, please? I'd
mhm,
like to see what's going on. I'd like to talk about the situation. Let's see what we can do.
mhm.
Usually that might be a situation where I take over her treatment plan in the office, and I will do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's happening. But at the same time, like, don't be so quick to be mad or angry, or just be like, okay, I'll just refund you and then that's it. Because in all honesty, when I scheduled for her to come in so that we could talk about what was going on, so I could see what was going on, and she told me herself that she had just had a really bad day, and it's almost like everything was just coming at her at once. And so that when she wrote that email, that was like part of kind of at the pinnacle of all the bad things that could happen. And so she did come on my schedule because we just have to see if we can get her a little quicker results. But at the same time, if your choices are to just kind of take the time and maybe bite the bullet for a little discount, a little this, a little that, versus refunding a couple $1,000s, there's kind of
It's a
it's a
no-brainer.
pretty easy decision. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about like, so I understand that our generation, we were the like wall phone kids. We would get off school and we would talk to our friends for hours because we didn't have text messaging like the newer generation does. Whenever I call my younger students versus send a quick text, you would think the world stopped in some of the cases. They're just like, why is the phone ringing? Like, it's just not something. I mean, when's the last time you guys heard your phone actually ring? Has it been off silent mode recently? Because that it's a shock. But the fact is like the most of your patients aren't usually in that like early 20s range, because they're still building the finances to be able to do a larger treatment, right? And that's not everybody, and I full well know that. So like, don't say like Stephanie said all or nothing. But like your 35-year-olds, they want you to call and say like, "Hey, you haven't been in a while. Is everything okay?" And they want to hear your voice, because all you guys do when they're on the table is either zap or talk about their life, right? It's like, depending on, are we in an area I can talk or not, right? And they want to connect. They did connect with you. And so it gets weird to make those phone calls, but if you do and you connect with them, it's never going to be a fail. I would definitely say that that's probably the leading thing that gets a person in the door is a call.
It's also easier, I think, to reason with people when you're talking to them on the phone, and text messages can easily be misconstrued. If you're in an argument, did you see the post on Facebook today? Um, it was somebody who was texting back and forth with a client about this technician touched some lady's hair. It didn't go well, and so I guess you'll find it. So everybody's going to go on
Okay.
Facebook and
I'm
look
like,
for
I
it. But
cannot wait to go.
the point of the message that I was kind of reading through is that there was all via text message back and forth, and it's like the text messages just made the situation worse because everybody kind of puts their own tone to it,
Mhm.
especially if you're kind of arguing, because it was an argument.
Right.
even if the person wasn't trying to be combative, it just it doesn't pass off very well sometimes. And so you just have to be careful. With situations like that, I like almost face to face, even. I would rather, and I've asked people to come in to physically see me face to face so that we can chat about what's going on. And I find that most people are much, much more calm,
Mhm.
and they're less willing to yell at you to your face, honestly.
I'm sure, like, everybody here has probably heard of a keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
You're so much braver behind a keyboard than and, like, you'll say things that, like, even you would regret, in person, and so, I'd rather book you a 30-minute consult, waive the fees, that kinda stuff,
Or
and take care of you in person than ever have a conversation through an email or a text message. Because, like, I think back to, like, there was a skit years ago that was, like, text miscommunications kinda thing, and it was just the 2 guys just going back and forth, and, like, one was, like, so positive, and the other one was, like, reading it all negative, and I just remember
yeah,
thinking, like, you have those moments where you're like, "Yeah, no, that's exactly what happens."
yeah,
And, like, we were, before you guys hopped on the call, we were talking about sometimes on Electrology, information worldwide, people will fall out of your schedule, okay? Whatever, not yours, but you know what I'm saying, like, they'll fall out of your schedule. You didn't connect with them well, you let them kind of go off into the abyss, and then they got irritated, and they go online, and they use the anonymous button on posting, and they badmouth your work, whether or not they're actually using your name, whether or
yeah.
not they're actually but, like, neither one of us are fans of the anonymous button on social media because
Yeah.
it's like, you don't need to be anonymous, like, it gives the opportunity to have
Well,
an
you
o
were talking about keyboard warrior. Now you're talking about an anonymous keyboard warrior. It gets even worse. So
yeah, double down on that one.
yeah,
And so whenever that happens, that's when, like, they'll people will tag in the instructors and they're like, "Hey, Stephanie, what do you think about this?" Or, "What do you think about this, Joanie?" And, like, I think that you need to go back and talk to your electrologist.
yeah.
I think that there was a loss in communication here, and I think that it's a great opportunity for you to go back to them, and find out what happened. That whether it's, like, treatments that didn't go right, whether it's communications that didn't go right. What is a world full of Facebook group users going to do to make you feel better
Mhm.
when you could have just gone to one person and really connected with them?
I mean, it's the equivalent of Googling symptoms trying to find out what your disease is. It's just,
Definitely.
most people, it's so polarized. They're either so scarred that their face is going to fall off, or some, it's the other side of the spectrum. We're like, it's going to heal tomorrow. So it's just leaving it to the masses sometimes is a little sketchy, and they don't know their background.
Mhm.
It's funny because years ago, there was a case that was, she came into my office. She had gone to another electrologist for years. And she came into my office, and this was face, beard, so face hair removal. Okay. Thick hair, redhead, so thick, kind of dryish follicles. And her skin was pretty sensitive, and it was pretty beat up,
Mm.
but not necessarily just from electrolysis. I can tell you this much. And so she had a lot of issues with like eczema. She had acne scars, and there was a lot of like telangiectasia, broken capillaries, and things like that. Now, I saw her in person. She came into my office. I took some photos, documented the case. You don't have the best skin. Maybe there's a little bit of overtreatment in some areas, but it would almost be negligible, and probably in like a matter of a couple of years would definitely lighten up quite a bit.
Mm.
But you're still getting some fairly aggressive work done. And so, expect that it's going to need time to heal. And when I say time to heal, I mean like you need to almost give it a year, and then, at like a year after you're done, to see how much your skin really bounces back from the treatments. And so she had come in, and I kind of did, my I talked to her about everything, and then she went on Electrology International. And I just knew because it was maybe 7 in the morning, and I was scrolling through my phone, and boom, I know this face
Mhm.
because I just took pictures of that the other day.
Mhm.
And so pretty much like, Like I'm just going through and I'm like, what is this? And so then I'm looking through everything. And then the peanut gallery jumped in, And so it was just, she posted, talked about kind of like what I said, but without naming anybody.
Mhm.
And then what had been done. And then it was just like, people were just trying to strategize about what could have happened with her face and coming out of left field. We had people saying that most likely this electrologist was doing 6 pulses, like super, super low, and it was coming up and it was scarring up the skin. And somebody else was saying something else. And it was all over the place. And I remember there was an electrologist at the time that was very vocal with every single post that would go
Mhm.
in that. And I just messaged her privately and I pretty much said like, because they would go as far as saying that like that electrologist needs to be taken to court and this and that, like whoever had worked on her before me.
Mhm.
But even with that, they hadn't seen her in person. And
Mhm.
so you don't know what you're dealing with, right? You don't know what her skin looks like. You didn't even see it in person. You're seeing some bad lighting photos posted on social media, and then you're just kind of running amok with that. And so yeah, I messaged the electrologist and I just pretty much told her, I said, listen, like I'm the one she came and saw.
Mhm.
I've been in this field long enough to know what I'm talking about. And and her skin, has this issue that is unrelated, that issue that's unrelated, this issue that's unrelated. So, it was pretty much like a leave off, like you don't know what you're seeing because you're not there seeing it in person. So
Right.
trust that I know what I'm doing, please, and stop scaring the client.
I mean, well, at my summer event when I showed the class, and I'm not gonna pull it up on here, and if you guys ever see me in person, I have it on my phone, I don't share it online. We had a patient that's not a patient of mine, a patient at my state in Washington that, had a major setback in their surgical goals because of severe overtreatment, um, by, untrained, technicians, and their trainer was not an electrologist themselves, just ran the business. And so what ended up happening is that patient had a setback. It took months for it to heal. The skin, there was a lot of volume loss. But what ended up in the community, everybody just started weighing in what they thought happened. And really what it came down to is unless you are the technician that did it or the next technician that's taking it on, you really don't know what's been done so far. So to send and circulate those images, it becomes problematic. And we used to see that hair towel is not used as much anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the reason it's not used as much anymore is people aren't necessarily on forums like that. And then also like with Mike passing away, Mike Bono passing away, and I think Andrea James is still doing it, but like it just hasn't had as much busyness. But we
Sure.
used to see that all the time on there where people would post pretty substantial issues with their electrolysis. And it's also one of the things that when I used to hear people say, oh, and remember, I'm a electrologist as well as a laser technician. I'm not currently practicing laser, but I for 20 years have done both. And so sometimes when I'll see people like, "Oh, laser is the only one that scars," or "Electrolysis, this
Yeah.
modality is a scarring one." And it's like, literally, it could come scarring can happen in any type of modality, any type of wavelength of laser. There are so many things that happen behind the scenes, and so when we start assigning, our favorite thing, like there was somebody online that had PCOS and they're like, "You can only do this modality." And I just remember being like, thinking in my head, if that person had a contraindication that they couldn't have, for example, galvanic current, okay? Would that mean that they can't have electrolysis now? Because the only modality that would work in that situation is whatever it is. And remind you guys that like I have multi-needle in my practice, I have single needle galvanic, single needle thermolysis. I I'm a blend operator. I do laser. So I actually don't have a camp that is my favorite. I just like to play with all the things. So when I'm reading these things and I'm seeing that, I just think about not everybody's going to fit in a box that you can assign blame or um what's the word I'm looking for? Like blame or like
Yeah,
focus.
like a somebody to like to be the culprit pretty much. Like yeah.
There's so many unknowns. And so when you look at that stuff online, I would give like, because it could be your patient that's posting it, especially if you're not connecting with them. It could be somebody else's patient that's there. I would take the most professional route and be like, the very first thing you need to do after this post is go talk to your electrologist, because
Mm.
if they don't know this has happened, if they don't know why you've dropped out of the schedule, they don't know why you're not happy with the treatments. Um, Consultations are like the number one thing I see people skip by in our field. They get so excited to start making money on the table, or so excited to start zapping. I know that those are like both equally there. That they're like, okay, you're here. Okay, awesome. I'm going to zap you. But then that patient goes online and they're like, I don't really understand how this works. And so it's all of those steps. That's the stuff that that does make you more successful, is how you engage with your
It's
community and that in the people at large.
it's hard sometimes to convince people that the consultation is as important as it is. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of technicians, a lot of electrologists think it's kind of a waste of time. I
Mhm.
can tell you, and it happens a lot. And this was kind of a segue. You said something that made me think of something. And so this will segue into that. Um, so many times you will get a client that comes from a previous electrologist and they want to skip the consultation. This happens all the time because they know how this works. They've had it done, right? I have a policy in my office that no matter what, no matter who, everybody gets a consultation. And it never fails that there's always a point where the client will go, um, oh, I never knew that. They never told me about this. Oh, that's how that works. There's a little light bulb moment in all of those. I can
Mhm.
tell you that doing consultations well in the beginning means that the client will be more committed to their
Mhm.
treatment plans. There's going to be less misunderstandings. Clients know to come to me with questions about healing, with questions about treatment plan progression, because they know that, because I make it clear during the consultation that I expect them to, and that this is a two-way thing. And so if I set expectations, but I say you need to talk to me. And so that way I don't have clients that go online and ask questions to the peanut gallery for things that really they should be coming to me for.
Today, we want to shine some light on some of our amazing partners who are helping shape the future of electrology education, services, distribution, and so much more. We're thrilled to have such amazing partners and supporters. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned professional, these vendors and schools have what you need to succeed. Zapmaster Electrology is located in the Pacific Northwest in Centralia, Washington. Stephanie Shields and her Zaplings lead the charge with award-winning education. Whether you're just starting out or looking to deepen your expertise, Zapmaster offers hands-on training, online theory courses, and so much more. And don't forget their distribution center. Led by Michael Shields, this is your one-stop shop for high-quality tools, products in electrology, aesthetics, laser hair removal, and so much more. Ready to enhance your practice? Visit thezapmaster.com. That is thezapmaster.com, and discover the resources awaiting for you. Elevate your practice with Silhouette Tone. Known worldwide for their advanced equipment and sleek designs, from epilators to treatment tables, lasers, and more, they provide a gold standard in comfort and performance. Your clients deserve the best, and the Silhouette Tone delivers. Head over to silhouettetone.us to learn more. That's Silhouette Tone, SILHOUETTONE.us to learn more.
Hey there, electrologists. My name is Hazel Bloom. I'm a life coach for the LGBTQIA+ community and its allies. As a trans woman, I have done the hard work and introspection to figure out who I am, what I want from life, and how to live authentically as myself. These are universal skills that I can teach you and help you gain the confidence to thrive. Also, I know that the conversations with clients on the table can get a bit intense and beyond the scope of electrology, so I'd invite you to refer them to me so they can get the support they need through a tough time instead of taking that burden on yourself. I'm also available as a resource for you if you just need some assistance figuring out how to help a client or to ask any questions. Whatever you need, I can help. My website is kiwifruitcoaching.com, or you can email me directly, hazel@kiwifruitcoaching.com.
Thanks for tuning in to Electrolysis Unplugged. Be sure to check out our amazing sponsors for the best in electrology tools, training, technology, and so much more. Now, back to the show.
My segue was into, you had mentioned, how do you, okay, so client, so it's the same thing. Client comes from a different office, okay? And let's say they've been getting 2 years done, weekly appointments, maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour once a week for 2 years on their chin, and they haven't been seeing progress. And they come and ask you, you know, how long do you think it's going to take? What normally is like your answer for something like that?
A
How do
year
you
and
approach that
3 years,
case?
depending on what's happening behind the scenes. And that's because, okay, so one, Pauline, yes, just so you know, I can't tell you how many clients have told me they were never given a consultation. Okay, like that before. So let me tell you guys something about Stephanie's consults. Okay, every year I joke and say that it's consultation 2024. That's, consultation 0.24. Okay.
Mm.
And it adapts to whatever my needs are that I'm servicing in that year. Okay. And my consultations used to be about 15 to 30 minutes, and they would have no sample treatment in that time. Okay. And it was just content and get them like out the door and that kind of stuff. Right. And I got to a point where I just I was getting other people's patients and I was having to re-educate. So right now my consultations run 45 minutes to an hour. And the reason I do that is because the level, especially in cases where you have somebody that's been doing that much treatment. If you think weekly for 2 years, right? That is 104 treatments at 30 minutes, and they have not seen results. You've got to ask yourself, one, do they know how to take care of their needs in between? Did they stop tweezing? Are they on a medication that's actually stimulating growth and they've been chasing it the whole time? Are their hormones regulated? What's happening behind the scenes? Has it been like a stressful 2 years? Has it been, after COVID, we had all these people that were taking steroids for their lungs and stuff like that. So we had like a resurgence of hair that was like 6 months after they would be on steroids. Was it one of those situations? When you come to me, you are new to electrolysis with me. Full stop. I understand, even when they've been in my mom's schedule or the girls I trained, right? If you're in my schedule, I've never seen anything but what's in front of me right now. I don't know the severity that it was before, if it wasn't documented before, if you didn't come with before pictures. I don't know anything. And so at minimum, I will tell you a year and a half. And I will say that it's substantial. I'm going to say 3 years, especially if it's hormonal.
Yeah, normally what I have to tell clients is kind of along the line as you, is I have to tell them, as far as I'm concerned, you're new to me, and I have to treat this case as if you had never seen somebody before, because I don't know what's been done.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, she could have been plucking every single hair on your face. Hopefully not, but that's kind of what it sounds like. So
right.
the case has to be treated as if it is brand spanking new. So I can't say that, you come in, oh, you've been getting 2 years, maybe another half a year, 6 months, you're done. You can't do that. And so it's important. And, one of the things that I've noticed too is there's clients sometimes can be a little bit they're not too pleased when they have to do a consultation if they feel like they know what you're going to be talking about, right? So a lot of clients like to skip that part. I've always used the line, I'll tell them, let's say, that's great, that we can chat about what's been done before and how, your treatment has been with the other electrologists. And then I can explain how we do things here. And so saying it like that is more, it's not me trying to say, nothing about what I'm going to be telling you and let me educate you. It's more of a, let's chat about what's been going on and then let me explain how I do things, And so most of the time, if a client comes a little bit combative in the beginning, I don't need this, I don't have time for that, blah, blah, blah. It tends to kind of have them take a little bit of a step back. And most of the time it's easy to they're just like, oh, okay, and then we can kind of go into things a little bit better.
Absolutely. I am blown away by the amount of times that like someone just sits there and they're like, I literally had no idea.
Mhm.
And I get it. I understand why that's happening because people are so eager to start the process.
Of course.
They forget the most critical step of the process, which is educating your patient how to be compliant with the process.
Yeah.
And it's rough. I mean, I can't make you follow a plan, but I can educate you on what the plan's gonna look like with me.
There's also some self checks that you can do, especially if you're new in business. Let's say your books are pretty full. And so 3 months in, right? So we were just kind of talking like if you're pretty on it, takes about 3 months and you can be like 75% full for your books. If you notice a pattern where clients come in and will tend to fall off your book, so they give up or they just disappear within the first 3 months, then you can pretty much 99% of the time pin it back to the fact that they didn't understand what they should be looking for, what the commitment really was, and you did not talk about what their expectations should be in the first 3 months. It always goes back to your consultation. I will tell clients straight up that you and I will be best friends for the first 3 to 6 months. We'll see each other a lot. And don't look at yourself in the mirror for the first 3 months. You can't judge any kind of progress until we've gone through that period. So if that's not clear on day one, they'll tend to give up after maybe 6 to 8 months, or it's 6 to 8 weeks, sorry, because they'll look in the mirror and they go, I still have the same amount of hair. This isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't explain that that was not the same hair that was coming in.
Yeah.
Then if they're ready to give up 6 months in, 9 months in, it could be that you're not cheerleading enough because it's a tough commitment. It's a lot. But if you're able to just kind of get them through the first 9 months, most of the time after that, it's just a downhill because the results and the reduction is pretty large once you get through that first 6 to 9 months for sure.
Yeah, basically 2 growth cycles in any area
Yeah.
is when you start to see the magic happen. It's
Exactly.
like and all of a sudden, you'll tell them, like, "Listen, I know this is rough, I know this is annoying, I know that but guess what? Like, this is how far we've made it." And photo documentation and charting and, like, I'm not talking, like, slightly charting, I'm talking about going through piece by piece and, like, talking about the plans that you've made, what they've done in between sessions,
Yes.
all of that. That's it, every time is going to help you. And then the patients can revisit it. Recently, it's interesting because we moved a little over a year ago, and I still have my old patients who will reach out to me from my family's clinic and like, hey, I'm seeing so and so now. I have some questions about my service. And I'm like, ask your technician. Like,
Mhm.
but what'll end up happening is I'm that person that's like, you know what, let me get you in contact with like my mom or your tech or
Mhm.
whatever. And let's get you like to ask the person who's actually seeing your face right now.
Sure.
We had a person call up and they're like, oh, I have like this spot that's just not clearing up. And this is why we take photos, right? And it's smart to take a photo like of a fully hairy and shaved face. Okay. Because shaved face, I'll see all the things underneath the hair, the things that the hair was hiding. And then hairy, I get to see what my full gravity looks like, what's really happening behind the scenes. So this person came in and that spot that they were concerned about had been there since the beginning. So
Yeah.
like when I was like talking to my mom about their case, I was like, they have just some concerns about a spot. They said that it was driving them crazy. They couldn't get it to lighten. And my mom went right to their file and was able like to zoom in and be like, is this the spot that's bugging you? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, that's it. I told you there's a spot there. And she's like, this is from your consultation. And they were just like, and so the things that like they don't remember what it looked like at day one or ground zero, right? And especially hair hides a lot of things. And so what'll end up happening is you're moving along and this person's finally starting to see some results, but they're also seeing things that they didn't really see before. And they're like, is that
Well, the
electric?
focus shifts.
Mhm.
In the beginning, you're very focused about the hair, but once the hair, usually it's the thick hairs first. But
Mhm.
I've been doing this long enough that I know that if I don't get the fine hairs too, we're going to hear 9 months from now, what about this fine stuff? And so I like to just get rid of it in the beginning because I know you're going to ask me. So let's just do it now.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's going to be the skin.
Mhm.
And then they start focusing on pigmentation and on wrinkles and things like that, which is not usually caused by electrolysis, but will no doubt be blamed for it unless you do like Stephanie says, which is, cover your butt and make sure you're taking photos and documenting.
So I tell this to my patients and I really truly hold true to this. Okay, so hair is volume. Okay. It is mass in your skin. And the more hair you have, the more density volume um, that's there, the more mass it's going to take up. That's why, like, when you look at someone assigned male at birth and you're looking at their lip, instead of them having a natural flip to their lip, the lip comes outwards because that hair stretches it out. So what ends up happening, especially on your trans femme faces, when you're working to clear out that facial hair, over time, the lip starts to drop because they don't have the hair there. Okay. So I don't know how well this is going to work because I am on a green screen, but I'm fairly certain you can see all these pens. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All of those pens represent hairs in your face. When I remove those hairs, it takes time for that skin to come back. The older you are, the
Mhm.
less care you took on your skin in the first place. The crazy things that you're doing behind the scenes because you're trying to like correct while removing hair, that all impacts that. And so the more volume I have there, I will show my patients, well, you might not have electrolysis scarring. You might see like fine lines show up in areas because what you had before is no longer there. And now you may need to get filler, right? Those are things that like we think about when being assigned female at birth. Like we're like, oh, I want to fill my lip. Well, why do you want to fill your lip? Because as we age, we lose volume, right? But our patients don't necessarily see that. And so as you're getting through a process, and yeah, we might have gotten a lot of hairs along the way, but they're now going to start picking on the other stuff. And that is going to drive you both crazy.
Yeah.
And it's important for you to like highlight those factors. It's important for you to say like hair is mass when mass leaves, and that's why you feather technique stuff, right? Because you're going to allow the skin to retract at a rate that it can actually like rejuvenate and heal the area. We're not going to do, back in the early 2000s where we would go and do a full
Marathon
clearance
sessions, as I like to
marathon.
call
Yeah.
them.
And like I am 100%, I did marathon sessions all the time. Okay.
Oh,
And then
I
yeah.
never wanted to.
And it was the model of the business where we would just do those large volume. And then it got to a point where I was like, one, I had patients on the table that didn't want to sit that long, right? They wanted to get the hair removed, but they didn't want to sit that long. Okay. Two, it takes forever for your skin to rebound after a marathon session. Even when your skin doesn't have scabbing, okay, just the sheer inflammation.
Yeah.
Or the dryness that happens because especially if you're using like thermolysis, right, and it's pulling a lot of that moisture from the area, that's a big factor. The amount that my patients have to grow out the hair to that point, and the amount that they have to wait to shave again because of how much you had to do. I will not go that route. Was that popular in the early 2000s for us?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But once we saw the full scale of like patients not necessarily following protocol and it not really looking the way we wanted it. You're my billboard. When you leave this office and you're taking pictures and putting them on Facebook, oh, look how swollen my face is after this marathon. Oh my God. No, thank you. So Pauline asked like how long was considered a marathon? So for us, and understand that so I've been in practice since 2003. So we're talking like 2003 to 2007 timeline. We stopped really doing this large a volume. It was usually 8 to 10 hour days for 2 to 3 days for out of towners. And that was just all day working. Yes, so SNAP is right. And I will tell you, it is painful for everyone involved. I now prefer not to do anything longer than 3 hours in a given area for both of us. So like I have one patient that comes down from Seattle. They do 3 hours face, 3 hours genital. Totally fine. It's a 6-hour day, but like we're taking breaks in there and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not doing the 6 hours myself. That goes to somebody else. And 4 hours is like, I mean, like, yeah, would I do a 4-hour day? Absolutely. Pauline's comment. It's just, I think that that came from a time where we allowed patients to really dictate the schedule,
Mhm.
and really direct us on what it wasn't necessarily what they needed, it's what they wanted.
It
And
was also a lot of people's business model because some patients or some clients really were seeking places like that. They would fly to these offices because you weren't the only one,
no,
but you would fly to these offices and they would stay and they sometimes it was done under local
yeah,
or they're an office that was doing like Twilight even.
yeah,
So
in the
putting
Midwest.
clients under in order to do that, like it's just a little bit crazy. I think that you're kind of flirting with some complications and issues, you know?
And like even okay, so like, and I'll tell you guys, like they'll my family's business still does long sessions, but they won't do full clearances like they did. It's just they're doing like a couple of days of like a reduced schedule. Even the injections that they do, there are caps to how much injections are safe and appropriate to do for someone's body. And an injection, a sub-Q injection for lidocaine and epinephrine is much different than like a Twilight. Okay. And so I will say that like, and I'll go back to the injections here in a second, but like, I will say that uh, you really can't get a person to lay on a table and not get fidgety after about 5 to 6 hours. And with the injections in there, it gave us breaks in the day. So basically, work for 45 minutes, they would get an injection, you take a 5-minute, stretch break, and you get right back to it. And that gave them time to like eat stuff throughout the day, drink stuff throughout the day, because you don't want them to like go without that kind of stuff. Their body's metabolizing product. But like all of those things came in and they came in from our like they came in from that medical direction. And it wasn't electrologist led. There were some places that there were electrologists doing the injections too. And like I don't know their background, but like you would never see me unless I was an RN doing an injection on my own patient. Like I just wouldn't do it. And to take that risk is huge. When you're doing injections, you also have so much moisture in the area that you end up kind of unfortunately having to pull back your energy
Mhm.
because your moisture gradient has now increased. It doesn't look at that and go, oh, that's lidocaine, right? It
Yeah.
looks at that and says moisture. So I'm going to open this up because I know that she
Mhm.
asked. Speaking of injections, have either of you done that before? Absolutely. That is not was it is my family's business model back in Phoenix still. They have nurses that are dual trained, so not only are they electrologists, but they're nurses as well. And then they also have electrologists that are only trained in like electrolysis and like laser hair removal and or electrolysis aesthetics kind of thing. And then the nurses, they have nurses that do like Botox and injections, that kind of stuff, and they'll kind of come in throughout the day. They're monitored all day long in those spaces. Like vitals are taken and that kind of stuff, just to make sure that like that individual's needs. So there's a lot more protocols that go in place. So my medical director that I have now, we were chatting and I don't know if it's something I want to bring back into the practice. I'd rather somebody go and just do upper lip, lower lip at a dentist, and then the rest of their body they usually can handle themselves. On genital areas, it's one of those things that like it just if you just do shorter appointments, you don't have to take on that. It's easier to do on a shorter appointment. So, do I seek out injections anymore? No. I don't know if that's always gonna be the case for myself. If down the road I find that, it's something that we wanna include, you go the same routes as before, but you do have higher risks. You have to make sure that you're whoever's doing the injections is in your state allowed to do them, because it's sometimes different in state to state. And if there's an added cost, not only like an added product cost, but there is an added cost. Like, so for example, injections, and I know that it's probably changed since I left. But it was about $50 an hour additional on the electrolysis to have injections hourly. Obviously, if you had 2 technicians in there, you're only paying the nurse for one time. So like that's when double technicians becomes beneficial, because it's like the patient is having more work in that time frame, but you do move slower with double technicians. And you guys know that from school. When you guys were playing around in school and you had 2 people on one body and you're trying to figure out like
Mhm.
who's
'Cause the
who's
hang gets
where,
sticky.
who gets the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little difficult. But I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just, for myself right now, I'm so tired of the type of client that it was encouraging
Mm.
on the table, and not like case. It's more along the lines of like, if you worked on your anxiety, you probably would actually have an easier time with electrolysis than doing the injections. We had clients that would just scream and wail. And
Mm.
it just shakes your entire day, right? If you guys think about those people that kind of burst out in discomfort, it, I would rather someone take it slower
Yeah.
than deal with that again. I just, even though it was such a small fraction, it got under my skin.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's I have some that are constantly like making little noises, and I'm just like, I want like, you know, here's a squeezy ball. Please don't do that. Stresses me out. I
Oh,
know it hurts.
we have had patients that were yellers. They would
No,
bark,
yeah, no,
they would burst out and I mean, like scream, like the kind
yeah,
of
that would
scream.
be no, not
Oh
here.
no. And
Not
especially
here.
when you're focused, right? You're like
Oh
looking
my
here, and
God.
all of a sudden it's like,
I would jump into the ceiling tiles. You kidding me?
I
When you're
mean,
hyper focused and then somebody, I mean, if my phone was off silent, I would probably jump. So
oh my
no
God.
way.
Yeah. One of my students dropped their battery pack from their light on the floor today, and I was zapping, showing another student a new position on a person. And when the battery pack fell, I swear my soul left my body, because I was like in the zone, and I was
Yeah.
so those are
How many
definitely.
times have you done a sneak attack on a student coming up behind them to see? And then as soon as you make a comment, they just jump into the ceiling.
I feel bad every
That
time.
cracks me up every time. Sorry to who are my
I
students here.
Yeah,
It
I
makes
do
me
laugh, and
I
you know,
laugh and then
like,
apologize, but it's
yeah,
funny.
it's like when someone falls and you're like, "Ha ha, are you okay?" Like it's
You just
that.
get so focused. Yeah,
Oh
for sure.
God, we don't mean to,
But
guys.
yes, those screamers, not so great.
No, I had a barker that was weird. They would just bark in the treatment room. That was just like, I don't even know what to
That
do with
had to be a tick.
it. I either that or they were messing with me. There's no way.
That had to be Tourette's or something.
Like, I'm like, what is this?
I
So
had a I had a client once that she was asking if the cataphoresis was going to hurt, and Hannah was there with me. It was like when we first opened, and we're like, "No, you're not gonna, whatever." And we go to do it, and I swear she went "Zzz," like I electrocuted her, and me and Hannah just like looked at each other like, "Oh crap!" Like, and then she's like, "Got
Crap, it
you."
does hurt.
I
Yeah.
was like, "Wow." No, she acted like we electrocuted her.
No, I know. I'm just saying that that was the response.
Yeah. And then, yeah, she was just like, "Got you." And I was like, "Wow. Okay."
Like you did.
savage.
Yep.
That's funny.
You don't get to be in my chair if you're gonna mess with me like that.
Yeah.
Oh, how to give your electrologist anxiety by every patient out there.
Right.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, but like going to your question, Pauline, I mean, like injections, are they worth it? If that's the business model that you want to have, if you want to dive into getting people properly trained, making sure you have the right medical direction, making sure you have the right insurance, make all of those things, then yes, it's the right direction. If you
Yeah.
don't
Well,
do
I have two clients that have both asked about it. and they
Well,
are
people will
they're the
ask.
same they're the same clients that I've done the 4 hour and the 3 hours on, and they're both in Brazilians. I am in a med spa that does do Botox and other things, but they don't already do that for the services they provide. But I was wondering if it's even worth starting the conversation of seeing about how maybe I can, hire them on
Well, yeah,
to
that
just,
I was just gonna say, it sounds like they're already set up to maybe just take on a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so if your client goes to them first and they just pay them directly, it might be advantageous for you without you taking on any of the liability or risks for it.
100%. I love
Right.
that idea. That's exactly how I would go about it.
Yeah, I would say, sure,
Yeah.
you want to do it? Get
well,
some
they don't
money.
they don't already offer it though. That's the thing.
Or, but maybe you can
But maybe I can get them to offer it.
exactly. You never
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And you won't
Okay.
even need it for everything, right? I mean, like, okay, so if you do injections, it's usually a subcutaneous injection. It's rarely a block. Okay, a block actually goes much deeper to the nerve.
Yeah.
I will tell you that blocks do not numb like sub-Q injections do, because we're not at the nerve, we're very
Yeah.
superficial. Okay. So a sub-Q is a lot better on its efficacy. If they already know how to do sub-Q injections, they just need to know their formulas, and that would have to be decided with their medical director, right? Like, what are they allowed to do? How much are they allowed to do per service?
Well, just a quick question. Usually like medical reps will come in and offer training for free if you just buy their products. Do lidocaine companies do that?
No.
Or is it compounded? And so
Compounded.
you're just buying from compound pharmacies. I see.
And right now there's a national shortage. So here's the other part. It's going to be a premium when it gets done.
Mhm.
So
It is,
it
absolutely. We're
yeah.
experiencing that right now in our med spa, so
Oh, that's rough, Robin. I'm so
because
sorry.
we do offer, I don't, but, our nurse practitioners and, we have 2 main injectors that can do, that's an added service, but that's them, right? That's not me. So that's, like you said, Joanna, they can purchase that from the med spa, right? But right now we're having trouble getting some of the compounded numbing that we like that's just kind of easy, like you said, subcutaneous. So
those that lidocaine shortage. Okay, so over the last, I wouldn't say, let's say it's about 5+ years ago,
Mhm.
there was the first part of the shortage was glass bottles after like Hurricane Maria.
right.
They were like sourcing in Puerto Rico, and they had the hurricane, and like you couldn't get glass bottles for a little while. It was bizarre because I can't believe that was the only place it was happening, but it was like McKesson was our distributor at that time. And that's what was, we couldn't get it. Then during COVID times, med spas couldn't get it because we didn't have preferential, right? So we're not as important as a
Right.
hospital, and we're in a medical crisis. And they're
Absolutely.
looking at us like, no.
You
So-
want to inject that where?
Right, exactly. So it was like, then you had that, and then you came out of that, and you finally didn't have the product because we were in a medical crisis, and they were
Right.
using it to sedate people for like ridiculous amounts of time and
Yes.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And so then you had to start compounding. And so the price used to be like, let's say it was like $45 for a vial. And I know I'm not saying the right amount, but like, let's just say it was like around $50 for a vial. It
Right.
started getting to about like $60 a vial. And I know that it's gotten like substantially higher from there. And while you can get a lot from a vial, okay, it's not like a lot. It's a couple patients
Mhm.
because of how much you're pulling. And then you're mixing that with like saline solutions, and that was difficult to come by. And then you mix it with epinephrine, and that was difficult to come by. And epinephrine only, you can do it in everywhere but like phalanges, and you can't do it on hanging genitals because
It
epinephrine
cuts off the circulation.
the circulation, and
That,
you
yeah.
don't want to lose that
Yeah.
unless you're like if you're not
Keep
accustomed
that
to it.
attached. Yeah.
And so
For now.
those are the things that happen
Yeah.
along the way. And so if you bring that premium in, the person that's going to do it, the patient has to understand they're probably going to charge them $75
Right.
Sure.
or higher just
Right.
to have that done. And that's like not taking into consideration any modifications that they have to do to their practice. So
Right.
whether that's more insurance, whether that's a different scope of practice, whatever that is, that's a
Right.
dollar sign that goes into that price point.
Right. Which most of the time they don't want to do. Then they buckle down and then they lose that anxiety. And I'm like, well, that's your option, So they don't want to pay the extra. But
Oh,
I don't know.
like,
There's been doing this a long time. And Stephanie, you do know I told you the secret of Houston. You just go across the border and
oh my God.
we're not going to go there because I still don't know what this solution is to this day. I'm like, I don't want to know.
Nope.
If it works for you, it doesn't disturb my job. So
And be
anyway,
really like, I mean, I know that we're almost done with our time tonight, but like when you are doing any type of numbing,
yeah,
the fact is you can't tell your patients what they should be doing. It's not in your scope.
right.
And so
Exactly.
you have to really dance a very weird
Mhm.
ballet when you start bringing that kind of stuff in, because like patients are like, well, how much can you inject? And I'm not even gonna say patients. Other electrologists will reach out to me. How much? What's your formula look like? How much did you inject? How frequently did you inject?
Right.
That's not my scope.
Right.
If you want to reach out to the medical director and see if they want to train you, that's a whole other thing, right?
Right.
But don't ever, like, every
Which,
person, don't ever speak outside your scope. It
yeah,
is the first thing to get your butt in trouble.
it's so nice to work in a med spa because I push it off every single time now. I really I like that crossover because it just makes life easy.
The
Just for
same
that
thing with
reason. I'm
having
like, you're my client, you're their patient, right? So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's the same thing with having, like, having a, primary care in our office. It's
Mhm.
like, if you're asking me a medical question, I'm like, "You know what? When we finish up today, I'm actually gonna have you go book an appointment with Doctor Shine so you can get your questions answered because
Right.
I have no idea what you're asking me."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I can play as dumb as I want to on that, and it's okay because it's not my scope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's a big thing.
All
Uh,
right.
totally, like, I'm glad that we had these
Absolutely.
conversations today because I
Yeah.
really think that, like, they're important for you guys, especially you newbies, right? It's
Especially the newbies
Mhm.
because there's options out there. We don't always know about them. And
Yeah.
we're not a doctor.
No,
No.
I'm like,
No,
if
that's why moving from Pittsburgh to Houston, I'm like, okay. This is not just a one-time thing. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry.